It's nice to see at this time so many people before Easter coming here. That was the reason to announce these seminars. So this is the first of 5 seminars we're organizing this week. All these seminars are very interesting, and I encourage all of you to come to these seminars. The first seminar is with Professor Ehud Gazit from Tel Aviv. When I came to airport, when I met him at the airport today, Ehud told me that he has been in Greece around 20 times in the last 20 years, and at least 12 of these times were in Crete. So Ehud knows Crete and Forth and the university better than probably some of you. Okay, so it's a good thing. And we are glad that Uli could come here on such a short notice, because I have sent him the invitation, I think only two weeks ago, and so he found just this day, this gap of one day, and he makes this flight from this morning from Tel Aviv to Crete, gives the seminar, and in the evening he will be again in Tel Aviv. But anyway, I think that many of you know Udi's work. I will tell you a few very brief few things about his CV. Udi studied at Tel Aviv University something which I understood was in the interface between physics, biophysics, chemistry, and biology. You can really correct me, but this was something in the interface. And then he did his PhD at the Weizmann Institute, and after that he went to MIT for a number of years. He stayed there and worked there also at MIT. Before returning to Tel Aviv again, where he started as a lecturer, and later became associate professor, full professor. I understand that at some stage, except research, he had to do a lot of administrative work, but now he's very glad that he will be able to reduce his administrative load and return again to science, which he's doing very successfully. Udi has got a large number of prizes, and there is a lot of recognition in his work. You can go to his website and find the list of that. And he is going to tell us about what you see in this title, which also reflects a part of his research interests. His work deals with peptides, with unfolded or misfolded peptides, if I understand it correctly, intrinsically disordered molecules. And he will tell us about the properties, how this fold, and what are the technological implications of these peptides. So, Udi, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here among friends. Actually, this is the first time I've been to Greece. It's exactly 20 years ago in Halkidiki in the north, when I met Anna Mitaki, which unfortunately is not here. She was a postdoc at MIT. I was a graduate student. Since then, as I said, I think that Greece is the country that I visit most often, and so it's really a pleasure. Happy Pesach, happy Pascha, and we'll get to the talk. So we are really, as Mike said, we are interested in somewhere in an interface between biology chemistry, material science, physics, and I hope that I can convince you today that you can go to very simple building blocks, remarkably simple building blocks, and get very unique physical properties. We are interested in learning and also being inspired from nature in order to identify recognition modules. We started with proteins, we moved to peptides, we now work also on metabolites, and our approach is a reductionist one and a minimalistic one. We are trying to find the most fundamental building blocks which allows molecules, especially biomolecules, but not only, also other organic molecules, to interact via processes of molecular recognition. As I said, I approach as a reductionist. We find smaller and smaller recognition motifs that allow the formation of ordered structures. Until recently, our shortest recognition module was dipeptides. But now we find that even single amino acid and nucleobases can form ordered structures that they have a functional activity. And we started with biology, we went to material science, and it brings us back to biology with new paradigms for inborn error of metabolism disorders. The formation of various structures, and this is how we interface back to physics, is resulting in a structure with unique mechanical properties, optical properties, piezoelectric properties, semiconductive properties. I will mention it up front that we didn't plan to have all these properties, but I guess that our reductionist, unbiased approach at the identification of really fundamental recognition module had resulted in those results. And another interesting point is the fact that elements that we identified by in a systematic way, in which we cut recognition modules to smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller ones, resulted in one case in structures that are actually exploited by nature due to very unique physical properties, in this case, their optical properties, which is guanine self-assembly, which is used in fish for physical colors, using chameleons for changing the colors, as reflector in reptile eyes, and I will show you by the end of the talk, I will take you through the way that we got into the self-assembly of guanine and its importance in molecular recognition and self-assembly. So many years ago, we started with trying to understand self-assembly of very important structure from the pathological point of view, which is amyloid fibers related to natively unfolded protein, as presented. The formation of amyloid nanofibers is associated with major human disorders, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, type 2 diabetes, many more, but about 20 different, now even 30 different disorders in which we see the formation of ordered nanostructures. And what you see in those all cases, you see fibers of 7 to 10 nanometers in diameter. They are well-ordered ones. They have a very distinctive X-ray diffraction pattern. This reflectance on the meridian, which is consistent with well-ordered structures along the long axis of the fibers. They are predominantly beta sheets in their secondary structures. And the very interesting point for us was the fibers from different origin, let's say from the brain of Alzheimer's disease patient and the pancreas of type 2 diabetes patient show remarkable biophysical and ultrastructural properties, the structural properties that I mentioned here, as well as others, in spite of the fact that there's no simple homology at the level of the amino acids between different amyloid-forming proteins and polypeptides. So a a key question for us was to try and understand the molecular basis for the recognition and self-assembly process that lead to the formation of these structures. Our approach, as I already mentioned, is a reductionist one, as amyloids are usually being formed in pathological cases with polypeptides of 30 or 40 amino acids, or even longer. It was demonstrated that short peptides, as short as hexapeptide, can form amyloid fibers with similar physical and ultrastructural properties, all these properties that I mentioned. We systematically analyzed short peptide fragments to pinpoint which amino acid play a role in the molecular recognition and self-assembly process. And based on these insights, we were able to identify even shorter fragments, as short as tetrapeptide, that can form amyloid-like nanofibers and develop new way to control this process. And we use all kinds of different techniques. We use peptide array analysis, we use synthetic peptides and spectroscopy, phage display, electron microscopy. We use animal models, both fly models as well as mice models, and also high resolution methods, both X-ray and electron diffraction as well as NMR. Although some of you heard me speak about this work that was done more than 13 years ago, I will start with it just to give you, those who haven't heard me in the past, the rationale in which we went to understand this process. So this was a little bit like a detective work. We knew that the starting point was our knowledge that calcitonin, the 31 amino acid peptide, forms amyloid in the case of thyroid carcinoma. Another point that we knew was the fact that the formation of the structures is pH dependent, which gave us some hints that it might be that amino acids that can change their ionization state in different pHs can play a role. Quite luckily, there were only 2 amino acids that were changing the entire sequence of these peptides. So, to make a long story short, double meaning, cut it to the smaller and smaller structures. We're the first one to show that a pentapeptide with this sequence can form typical amyloid fibers, all the properties that I mentioned, and then even a tetrapeptide with a sequence noted here can form fibular structure, although they were a bit thicker in diameter. More than that, we realized that we looked at the different amino acid compositions, and we changed the various positions, and we realized that if we change the phenylalanine to an alanine, we could not get the formation of the structures. We went on to study basically most of the amyloid-forming proteins and polypeptides. Medin is very interesting due to its physiological/pathological role. So this is structures that are being formed in virtually all individuals older than 60 years. The physiological or pathological significance is not fully understood, but it probably has to do with the changing in the flexibility of the aorta in advanced age. Our contribution here was, again, a reductionist one. We went on to discover hexapeptide fragment, which is denoted here, and the chemical structure is here, that can form typical amyloid fibers with all these properties. Once again, when we change the phenylalanine to an alanine, or even to a very hydrophobic isoleucine, we could not get the formation of these structures. We went on to study all kinds of structures. This is a summary of short amylogenic motifs. Most of them were discovered in my lab. And we could not see a very clear sequence homology between the different amyloid-forming proteins and polypeptides. But one thing that we could see is the occurrence of aromatic amino acids, especially phenylalanine. We also knew that if you mess around with these phenylalanines, even if you put quite hydrophobic amino acids, you can get the influence the formation of the structures. And we came up with something that was based on a concept of supermolecular chemistry. In retrospect, there are many young students in the lab. In the audience, I want to encourage you to be brave and based on intuition. So we suggested the possibility that it might be that interaction between aromatic moieties, which are geometrically restricted, can provide both stability as well as acceleration in the formation of amyloid fibers. But it wasn't only hand waving, it was based also on something that we knew that occurs in biology. So before there were any structures, X-ray crystal structures of amyloids, people were using beta helices as models to try to understand how beta strands can arrange one on top of the other to form other amyloids. One thing that people work on beta helices knew and it was missed by those who suggested beta helices as models for amyloid is the fact that you see these beautiful aromatic ladders, as you see here in red. Moreover, if you mutate these aromatic moieties, you interfere with intramolecular interactions that have a role in the folding of these structures. And then we suggested that it might be that the geometrically restricted aromatic interaction play a role in the acceleration and stabilization of the amyloid fibers. We got some criticism in the beginning, but quite luckily, we need also luck, not long time after we suggested this model, there was the first high-resolution X-ray diffraction structure of amyloid fibers by Louise Sartell when she was still at Cambridge. She solved the structure of fibers formed by this peptide, and I will just read the first line of the discussion. She said that the striking feature of the structure presented here is the use of the phenylalanine side chains to stabilize internship packing by peptide technique. So, and Louise and I'm very thankful for that. Was kind enough to suggest our early models, although it was based somehow on intuition and play around with different analogs. So we got a direct confirmation of the model that we suggested. Before that, mainly people related to formation of amyloid is related to hydrophobic interactions rather than more precise packing of aromatic moieties. Later on, there are many structures. This is Dan Kirshner from Boston College. Once again, you can see the beautiful aromatic ladder, and he suggested it also as the aromatic target for, in this case, it's a tau fragment for anti-tauopathy drugs and others. So we did another line of research in the labs, which is quite extensive. It was based on not only understanding how these structures are being formed, but also try to inhibit the formation by the utilization of all kinds of chemical tricks, either by peptide and peptidomimetics. We like very much the alpha-amino isobutyric acid, because as I told you, amyloid fibers are beta sheet-rich structures, and alpha-amino isobutyric acid is the best helix inducer known for natural non-coded amino acids, much better than proline that other people were using in the past. Another direction is the use of small organic molecules. Here you can again see the rationale. We have some structures, interaction with aromatic moiety, some steric hindrance by the binding. This is representing again a lot of work, but I will just highlight one of the compounds that already reached the clinical phase. This is the use of D-tryptophan, alpha amino acid butyric acid. So it's a peptide mini. It's a dipeptide of two non-natural amino acids, but it is for any purpose. It's a safe, oral, bioavailable, novel chemical entity that was already reached the clinic. And how you test if something is effective towards amyloid disease. So the best, so as you know, in Alzheimer's disease, and this is a model for Alzheimer's disease, you have problems of learning and memory. You can have transgenic mice with two mutations that lead to impairment in their memory, and the best way to study memory in mice is with mice and maze. So you teach the mice to find the way in the maze, and then you measure how much time does it take the mice after training to find the platform. In this case, it's a water maze, or the length of the path that the mice is doing. Because if they don't remember, they go around, try to find the way. Everything is automatic. You have a camera that is either measuring the length of the path or the time that it takes the mice to find the way in the platform. And the mice that are being used are transgenic mice, but they have two mutations, Swedish and London in this case, which resulted in memory impairment. So we could see that if we take these transgenic mice and train them to find the way in the maze. If you compare mice that were just treated with a vehicle that was used to apply the compound, and mice that are treated with our new chemical entity, this dipeptide, we could see significant improvement in the time that it takes the mice to find their way in the maze, in the treated mice as compared to the mice treated just with the placebo, which was quite impressive, but became much more impressive when we added the third group. The third group are normal mice in blue. So the normal mice are just the same mice, but they lack the two mutations that cause memory impairment in those mice. So if you look at the normal mice in blue, the mice were treated with the compound in red, and the mice treated with the vehicle in black, you can see that either in the length of the path or in the time that it takes the mice to reach the platform, there is no significant difference between the normal and treated mice, but these two groups are significantly different from the mice treated with the vehicle. So we could not only specifically significantly improve the cognitive performance, but we could restore it to a level that are similar, statistically identical to those of non-transgenic mice. Due to many reasons, this compound, commercial reasons, this compound entered into the clinic. It's now already tested in human patients, but not for Alzheimer's disease, but rather for a glaucoma, in which also you have aggregation of beta amyloid, and the results are quite impressive. I do hope that one day we will get also to Alzheimer's disease, which is much more expensive to study, and after we prove it in other diseases. And much of my the work in the lab is related to development of second generation and third generation and things that are based on peptide. and things that are based on small organic molecules. But our attempt to try and understand the molecular basis for amyloid formation actually led to some surprising activities, which was also became a significant work in the lab for many years, which was again in our attempt to, in a reductionist approach to find the smallest recognition module that can form amyloid. So again, the starting point. 32 amino acid polypeptide beta amyloid form amyloid structures in the brain of Alzheimer's disease patients. We knew that the heptapeptide fragment, you can see the sequence here, KLVFFAE is a amyloid former. Two pentapeptides, KLVFF and LVFFA, are amyloid inhibitors. The common, and I already told you that many times inhibitors are just the other side of the story as compared to former. They bind the recognition site, but do not allow further growth of the structures. The common denominator between the former and the inhibitor was this diphenylalanine motif. I told you how much that we like phenylalanines, and we believe that this role. And quite frankly, we thought that we'll be the first to show that the dipeptide, the shortest duplicate peptide, can form typical amyloid fragments. What was surprising, again, this is already many years, instead of the formation of typical amyloid, we got the formation of these nanotubes. As you can see here, those in the front, you see that these were also all nanotubes. And this took us to a very interesting journey in the field of nanotechnology. We played around with the different synthetic analogs. So we started with diphenylalanine, a natural dipeptide. We moved to diphenylglycine, which you have the aromatic moieties connected directly to the C-alpha of the dipeptide, and we could get spherical nanostructures. In retrospect, it's quite known in nanotechnology that many times nanostructures are coming in two flavors, either in tubular form or spherical form. This is in the case of carbon, this is the case of inorganic materials, but also in the case of those peptide nanostructures. Later on, synthetic peptide chemists, we extended the repertoire to other non-natural amino acids, including larger aromatic like naphthylalanine, a structure like pentafluorophenylalanine to have Teflon-like properties, more unique aromatic structures, double aromatic side chain. And we could see the formation of all kinds of different structures based on the different motifs. In all cases, it was aromatic homodipeptides. Dipeptides, very simple building blocks, two identical amino acids. We can form all kinds of different structures. We have now a catalog of, I guess, about 20 or 30 different building blocks that can form structures of different morphologies and different properties. One thing is to make the nanostructures. Another thing is to make not just a single nanostructure, but rather arrays. And also here we were quite instrumental in the development of all kinds of techniques to make arrays of nanostructures. In this case, by axial unidirectional growth, we could make the formation of these, what we call nanoforests, just by growing moving from organic solvent and control evaporation, we could get the formation of the various of these peptide arrays, nanotubes arrays. We used things like inkjet printing, simple as that, taking refilled ink cartridges filled with the peptides and printing all kinds of peptide materials. And more recently, and I really like this, which was for us also thinking a little bit out of the box, was the use of physical vapor deposition. Usually when you think about biological molecules, you don't think of moving the molecules from solid phase to the gas phase, and many people also think that peptides are not stable. This is an opportunity, even I'm on camera, to mention, as I always say to the students, there is no reason to believe that peptides will not be stable at high temperature. We have proteins that thermophiles that are active in high temperature. It's the fact that most of the proteins that we see and peptides that we see are not stable is the fact that nature has selected a small subset of the, if you have 100 amino acids and proteins, so it's 20 to the power of 100. It's the only small subset is not stable. So we knew that peptides would be stable at high temperature. This was an aromatic peptide, and we used vapor deposition. We moved the peptide from the solid phase to the gas phase, and we can control the formation of the structure. You see here again the formation of nanoforest with the same, it's two same scaling electron microscopy figures with the same magnification. Just by controlling the self-assembly on the colder subset, heat it to 200 degrees centigrade, 220 degrees centigrade, using a cooler subset of 80 degrees, and we could get either nanoforest with nanotubes of around 40 microns or around 4 microns just by controlling the self-assembly of biomolecules. And this is also quite extensively studied now in the lab to make all kinds of biomolecular structure by vapor deposition. We even got quite recently a US patent on this because really and I think the title of the patent is vapor deposition of biomolecules, because people were not thinking of moving, evaporating a small biomolecule. So I told you about the building blocks and their formation. I told you about the making of ordered arrays. Another thing that we noticed quite from the beginning is the unique physical properties of the structures. So we could see that the remarkable persistent length of the nanotubes, which is associated with mechanical rigidity, but we really needed to measure directly the rigidity in order to calculate the Young's modulus of the structure. So the way that we did it, we used AFM, atomic force microscope. So the way that it's done, you have the cantilever of the AFM, you applied force, and you can measure how much force you need to apply in order to deform the structures. This is so we use this. So we measured the average point stiffness. It was about 155 Newton per meter, which translated to Young's modulus of about 20 gigapascal. Those of you who are not mechanical engineers, or I just give you the reference, the cytoskeleton that gives the cell its rigidity is about half gigapascal. The most rigid plastics like PICs, they have between 4 to 6 gigapascal. Bone and teeth, they have Young's modulus about 20 gigapascal. Titanium, a very rigid metal, it has a Young's modulus of about 100 gigapascal. Steel, it's around 300 gigapascal. Diamond, it's around 1 terapascal. So we have things built by self-assembly of peptides, no covalent bonds, just mixing in the pot and dipeptide. We got things that are as strong as bone or teeth. At that time, we claimed that this is the most rigid self-assembled organic structures. Nobody refuted it. Actually, there was a work from the group of Salt-Tedler in the University of Nottingham, which calculated, using a different method, the bending beam method, calculated Young's modulus of about 29 gigapascal. So it is now clear by different methods that you can make this structure as by simple self-assembly of dipeptide building blocks, things that are as strong as bone and teeth. This was a surprise. We had another surprise when we wanted to study the nanospheres that I told you about. So we should use the same technique. AFM, imitation, you press and nothing happened. Only when we changed the cantilever to cantilever made of diamond, which I didn't know it existed before, we had to pay for it $2,000, we realized that you can deform these structures. Then we measured the point stiffness of nearly 1,000 Newton per meter. It's a lot, even if you don't have the feeling. And the Young's modulus is between 200 to 300 gigapascal, so it's like steel. So if it was a surprise to have things that are as strong as bone and teeth from the tubular nanostructures, it's now it's even more mysterious to and surprising to get the structure, to get such structure as strong as steel from self-assembly of the spherical nanostructures. This, of course, got the attention also of physicists, and this is an attempt of trying to understand from first principle quantum chemistry to understand the basis for the rigidity. I have to say that it's still not fully understood. We have some hints. And another advantage of the minimalistic reductionist approach is the fact that you can apply to these structures not only classical molecular dynamics, but you can apply first principle quantum mechanics techniques. And since the computational power needed for the smaller system is considerably smaller as compared to the study of larger types of proteins. But still, this is an open question, and I'm always trying to convince the physicists to get interested in those structures. Other properties that are being reported, piezoelectric properties. Similar to lithium niobate, the best inorganic piezoelectric material. Semiconductive properties. I move very fast because I hope, for me, it's mainly an appetizer to convince people to work now. There are hundreds of groups working on these structures, and we get much more than we could do by ourselves by the fact that that other people are studying such simple systems. Other properties are luminescence protein and others. And there are many applications also for this. Some of them are exploited now by commercial companies, energy storage devices, light emitting, hydrogels, and others. You can find now so many people working on diphenylalanine. Still, I think that until 4 years ago, when I would give such a talk, people would tell me, well, you show us all these wonderful miracle properties of the diphenylalanine. It doesn't make sense. You can find the diphenylalanine in all kinds of proteins, although it's aromatic amino acids are not as common as other amino acids, so it's not 1 in 400, but you can find the structures. And I would say in this case that nature was very careful in putting phenylalanines well buried in the hydrophobic cores of proteins. But recently, a few years ago, there was discovery of this metalloprotease in E. coli. Later on, it was found in many other bacteria, but specifically hydrolyzing the diphenylalanine bonds. So, not only us as physicists, as biophysicists or material scientists were very interested in the diphenylalanine, but also nature makes sure that investing the evolution force and energy in making a metalloprotease that specifically cleavage the structure actually di-aromatic phenylalanine and some specificity to tryptophan phenylalanine. And even more interesting than that, if you delete this protein from the E. coli, under normal conditions, the E. coli is growing normally, happily, nothing happens. But if you change the temperature, make higher temperature, lower temperature, increase the salt, the ionic surface, decrease the ions, all these properties that cause protein unfolding, then you cannot get the growth of the structure. So this is a metalloprotease that nature has invested quite a lot to make this a metalloprotease, to keep it on the genome, just to avoid the exposure of diphenylalanine. So I think it's another proof that although we did it in a systematic, unbiased way, we really identified probably the most fundamental recognition module in the biological world. Another interesting concept came from a group, from a work, computational work by Ulin and Atel, published very recently, and they score all tripeptides according to their AP, aggregation propensity. And see the list. It's PFF, WFF, WFL, MFF, VFF, FFN, FWF, FFF. So everything, all the top scorers are containing phenylalanine. Most of them are containing diphenylalanine. Those that do not contain diphenylalanine contains tryptophan phenylalanine, which is another very fundamental recognition module. So I think that by the investment of nature in this protease, the computational study, the really unique properties, I'm quite convinced that this is, we got it in serendipity, but all due to very systematic study, but this really represents a very fundamental recognition module in nature. Now, as you will see also in the last part of the lecture, we always go back from biology to material science and back to biology. I told you about this luminescent property of the diphenylalanine. Years later, the group of Clemens Kaminsky, together with Chris Dobson and others, demonstrated that amyloids, the large amyloids, our inspiration to make the small peptides, have the same luminescence properties without labeling, with luminescence around 450 nanometer, just as we saw with the peptides 5 years ahead of this. So we always go between the two systems. So as I said, diphenylalanine now is studied by more than 100 groups in the world. You know that something is taking off your hands when you see a review like self-assembly and application of diphenylalanine based on materials on the cover of Chemical Society Review, and the first time that you see it is when it's published. So the competition is very fierce. So we had to reinvent ourselves, and this is really a very recent work, which I like a lot. So I told you all about the peptide nanotechnology and all the beautiful and inspiring things that you can do with the short peptides. But in parallel, there was a lot of work that was done on DNA nanotechnology, pioneered by Andrew and Seaman and others. And what is the advantage of DNA as compared to peptide? DNA, you have the specific recognition between the bases, as we know in DNA recognition. So we wanted to try and see if we can get the best of the two words, and by using PNA, peptide nucleic acid. Maybe some of you are familiar with this. These are peptoids because the side chains are from the nitrogen and not from the carbon, but these are amide, polyamide analogs of DNA invented in Denmark in the 90s. And the main use, very nice use that was done in the past, is the use of these DNA analogs in order to do interference with the expression of genetic material, so on and so forth. We thought maybe it could be a material for nanotechnology because it has the recognition side on the one hand. It has a polyamide backbone, as we know, it is the best structure for materials. Nature has discovered it, proteins. Synthetic organic chemistry has discovered it. Nylon, Kevlar, all kinds of polyamides. Again, our approach is always non-biased. We studied, but we like dipeptides, so we studied all the different analogs of all the 16 combinations of dipeptide when we put the different AC, G, and T side chains. We discovered that only guanine containing dipeptides could form ordered structures. Please go back to my second or third slide with the use of guanine in nature. And very interestingly is when we saw the crystal structure. So what that we observed was, as we envisioned, we have stacking interaction like we have with the aromatic peptides, but we also have Watson-Crick interaction between the moieties, resulting in quite dense and crystal packing of these structures. When you get new structures, you get also new physics. So, of course, we wanted to publish it in a good journal, and we wanted to make some kind of relationship to DNA. So we wanted to see whether the new structure can interact with intercalating dyes, like ethidium bromide. Luckily, we did a control. It's very important to do controls. And we realized that even without the addition of any fluorescent intercalating dye, you see fluorescence of the structures. But it's not a simple fluorescence like we saw with the diphenylalanine. This is a fluorescence, okay, new physics, that is behaved in a red edge shift, red edge excitation shift of the fluorescence. So depending, not like the fluorophore that you know, depending on the excitation wavelength of the structures, you influence the emission. So the structures would be blue, green, yellow, orange, red, depending on the wavelength that they are excited. This is a phenomenon that is not common for organic material. You see it in graphene oxide, you see it in glassy materials, but also here, probably due to the unique packing of the structure, you see this phenomena, and this is something that we study extensively now in the lab, try to understand, also using density function theory, quantum mechanics, and other things. This wasn't enough for us. We wanted to go to even smaller systems. Again, it started as control, I have to say. So I told you that we got from 40 amino acid to 5 amino acid, 4 amino acid, 2 amino acids. We extended the 2 amino acid also to DNA. And this is also started as a control. We said, what is, and again, before there were all this work on the E. coli diphenylalanine metalloprotease, and the work, the computational work, was the question, what is the minimal requirement to get the formation of nanostructures? So we said that it's probably the planar MI bond. Some of you remember from Biochemistry 101, due to the resonance, you have a planar structure of the MI bond. This is the reason that the polyamide are also used for various structural applications, both in proteins as well as in synthetic polymers, where a single amino acid can form all the structures. And we started with phenylalanine, we like phenylalanine, and we realized that under concentrations of hundreds of micromolar, also from a single amino acid, we can get the formation of all the structures that look exactly like amyloid. Fibrillar structures that they have a diameter of 7 to 10 nanometer, binding to Congo-red and show birefringence and properties of amyloid, binding to ThT, another property of amyloid. We could see very clear electron diffraction patterns. So these are well-ordered structures formed by a single amino acid. And we always go between biology, material science, and biology back. We ask ourselves, as biologists, what could be the physiological meaning of this? And we realize that there is some cases in which you have a concentration of phenylalanine as high as hundreds of micromolar, even 1 millimolar, and this is in the case of PKU, phenylketonuria. Phenylketonuria is a genetic disorder in which the individual lacked the enzyme that convert phenylalanine into tyrosine. So if you have a defect in the enzyme, you end up with accumulation of phenylalanine even to a concentration of 1 millimolar. And in the past, it was suggested that it's probably the balance between the different amino acids and so on and so forth is causing the neurodegenerative or properties that you see in this disease, developmental abnormalities and others. We wanted to see if it acts like amyloid. And we could see that these structures are toxic. They have toxicity in those concentrations when you see accumulation in untreated PKU patients. Moreover, we could raise antibodies against these fibrillar assemblies and deplete the toxicity of these fibers. At that point, we wanted to send it to a good journal, and then we had tough referees. They told us it might be just a coincidence, it might be just an artifact. Please provide us some proof that it really occurs in animal models. We started with animal models. And then it was a good, good comment because we could prove very nicely that in homozygous model of the disease, a mouse that lacking the two copies of the enzyme that converts phenylalanine to tyrosine, you could see the formation of the antibodies against these structures. So it means that these structures really occur in these animals. Another interesting point for us was, again, by crystallography, try to see how these ionic forms of phenylalanine organized. Again, we get quite a lot of fire, but I'm not worried. I try to convey this message. when you think about beta sheet, so if you run your beta sheet, it's like this zigzag of structures. What we see here, from my point of view, in the crystal structure of phenylalanine, it's in its literal ionic form. If you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I see something like a supramolecular beta strand. And this is a new concept that we try to convey to the scientific world. Hopefully, we could do it. Later on, and this is a more recent study, and again, the advantage of having such a simple model is now we have a lot of competition. A group from India demonstrated the ability to inhibit the formation of the structure by a stereoisomer of diphenylalanine. Other people were showing the ability to control it by small molecules and others. We wanted to see whether it is general, whether you see it in other metabolic disorders, and we studied systematically in an unbiased way all kinds of metabolites that are being accumulated in different diseases, and we could find that several nucleobases like adenine, orotic acid, cysteine, tyrosine, uracil, in addition to phenylalanine, can form these structures. So we extend the amyloid hypothesis to include not only proteins, peptides, shorter peptide, and also amino acid and nucleobases. And we can demonstrate that we see toxicity, and the toxicity that we see, and as a control to see that it's not just because it's amino acid, we use alanine, at even much higher concentration because alanine does not form these structures. And we could see that it's not only toxic, this is an extension to the nature chemical biology work, and the toxicity is by apoptosis, as we see with amyloid. So it's same structure, same morphology, and also toxic, and also in the same toxicity by mainly late apoptosis toxicity. Let me just finish the very few slides, going back from biology back to technology, and this was just published a few weeks ago. So, inspired by the amino acid work, we asked ourselves if we get to a smaller PNA system, smaller than the dipeptide. In a non-biased way, we studied all the PNA building blocks that can form all the four protected PNA building blocks. And again, we found that only guanine containing protected PNA building block, a single amino acid, protected amino acid, can form ordered structures, in this case very ordered one. You see the spherical, it looks like silica spheres. You see here the dynamic scattering, you see the regular spheres that are formed. I don't know if you can see here. This is an array contains of thousands of ordered spheres. You can see with the Fourier transform that is organized in a hexagonal phase. When you get the structures, you get physics, and we see colors, probably to the properties of photonic crystal. And by the time that we wanted to publish it, it was a work not by us, but a group in France that showed that in the case of chameleons, there's the formation of guanine structures, and the change in color is based on the changing in the ionic strength and spacing between the guanine structures. So we wanted to see whether we could see it also here, and like the chameleon, we could change the colors also of our guanine-based nanospheres with the change of the ionic strength of the structure, and then because this nanosphere will have some zeta potential, you can change the spacing by changing the ionic strength. So, to summarize, we started with amyloid, naturally occurring pathological self-assembled biological structures. our suggestion was that aromatic interactions play a central role in amyloid fiber self-assembly by extremely short peptide, not only hydrophobicity, but also aromaticity. Specking interaction rather than mere hydrophobicity may provide energetic contribution as well as order and directionality in the self-assembly structures. It allowed us not only to understand the mechanism, but to develop new ways to control this process, mainly drug development. Moving to smaller structures, we realized that very simple biomolecules contains all the molecular information needed to mediate molecular recognition and self-assembly into all the nano objects. Very short peptides, amino acids, and nucleobases from self-assemblies and closed cage nanospheres, nanofibers, and all the hydrogens. Skip this. Time. We can control the assembly of the structure using various technological applications, and the assembly of nanostructure by such simple building blocks results in unique physical properties. This is, of course, the work of many talented students. Some of them are already, they have the professor already at Hebrew University. Other people are now faculty at the Tel Aviv University, others in postdoc and companies, other places. I moved very fast because for those of you who never heard me, I want to give you some of the entire story, starting from the amyloids and going back to biology, material science, and that. So if somebody is interested in the original papers, you can find it in my website. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. I wanted to ask you, I think all the data you showed in the experiments are performed in liquid.
Yes.
So my question is, if you have any experience from your lab or from other labs, where people try to have this self-assembly process on a surface, starting from a covalently mobilized from a single point block, in your case in glass. Is that possible?
This is an excellent question, and this is something that should be done. As I said, it's not only liquid, we did also the vapor deposition. I think it was some people in Korea, this is the advantage and disadvantage with so many people are working on this system. It started this nucleation-based formation of the structure. But indeed, I think that the great advantage of these structures is the fact that you can modify the surface and then really use addressing even to make this. And, some of the reasons that I speak so openly about the application of these structures is because I'm happy that my students are less happy, but I'm happy that it's taking off our hands and it's so simple. It costs almost nothing. You can buy it from Vacuum or Sigma, the building block, and everybody's welcome to try it. So I think that surface modification, addressing, should be the next step for these structures.
And how big were the last structures you showed us? I couldn't see.
Yeah, the last structures are micron scale.
Oh,
They are, you can see here the dynamic light scattering. A little larger than a micron, but very regular. Almost identical.
thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to ask you before.
Before you were talking about you improved by the use of a dipeptide containing tryptophan, if I'm not wrong, the cognitive properties of a mouse.
Yes.
That was affected by Alzheimer's disease.
Yes.
I would like to ask you how do you subministrate this dipeptide and how it interact with amyloid plaques.
Okay. Yeah, so since I tried to put, first of all, you can find the paper, it was published in the Atlantic in 2009. Yeah, but just to give you that, we wanted to prove the proof of principle, and what we could see with this compound that it's completely inhibit the formation of oligomeric structure by beta amyloid. The peptide is available orally with around 50%, but we wanted to make proof of principle, so we used it IP, and with the compound, and we could see brain penetration. This is another advantage of small molecules, and I think that the next step, which is just extrapolation but should be shown, is to give it just in gavage or in drinking water, because it's also water soluble, and as we see it as a potential oral bioavailable compounds to treat Alzheimer's disease, unlike other things that are in the clinic that are antibodies which you need to inject. This is our vision. Again, as you may know, the development of drugs is so lengthy, so expensive, so risky, that I hope that we could bring also this to clinical drugs.
Okay, thank you.
Two questions. The first question is, for example, this phenylalanine motif.
Yes.
The idea there is that they have to be, the two phenylalanines have to be connected by a
covalent bond.
Covalent bond, because for example, such a motif where you get in space, phenylalanines coming together but not connected to phenylalanines. We have it also in proteins that we happen to solve various times. They are very clear. They use it probably to interact with.
They use it probably to interact with nucleic acids.
Nucleic acid,
but
also
this is
sugar binding.
Yeah, exactly. But this is something different from what they see.
This is something different. We think, and we could see that when you have phenylalanine connected via covalent, that means the diphenylalanine motif, it's extremely high aggregation propensity. So if you have it exposed, you have more than one of it exposed, it's just like sticking one to the other. It's the first crystallographer, you may know him, Carl Lovitz from Norway, who first solved the crystal structure of the diphenylalanine, called it aromatic glue. So it's really like glue. It's and as I said, we were very happy to see this paper about the phenylalanine metalloprotease, because people were very skeptical about this miracle dipeptide. And I think that now people are more convinced that it's really represents fundamental recognition model.
Okay, the other thing is about the DNAs.
Yes.
You also dipeptide, yeah. This is not, I mean, it's almost something between protein and nucleic acid, but not quite. I mean, you don't have the side chain, I mean, which means the base going from the C alpha carbon starts from the nitrogen.
Nitrogen, so it's a peptoid.
So is there modifications of that we could start from the carbon atom, which would then add the...
Yeah, so I have to say very clearly that PNA was invented in Denmark by a very talented organic chemist, and when you have it on as a peptoid from the nitrogen rather than the carbon, it's much better fits the binding to the, so to make hybrids between PNA and DNA. And this is the available structures. You are right that, but this requires from us much more synthetic efforts. For our purposes, it could be peptides and not peptoids from the C alpha and not from the nitrogen that you need to synthesize it. And it might be quite interesting in its properties. I fully agree. But, we use the commercially available building block for PNA. And I think that I also was able to convey this. We try to think simply, in a simple way, having the tools that are available to us and try to interfere what to infer what are the minimal recognition model that
This PNA you buy commercially?
Yes, I mean the building block. We synthesize it using solid phase synthesis. But the building block itself, when you have it, you have a protection both on the amine as well as on the base. With this is commercially available.
Okay, then if there are no other questions.